is Sean Davis. I grew up in Central Oregon in a small town on the Mackenzie River. My dad and my uncles were loggers, and I kind of thought that's what I would be too. But in the 90s, when I graduated from high school, um, the logging industry went under. I decided to join the Army Infantry. I joined at a small recruiting base out of Lebanon, and I was sent to Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. And 3 years in the infantry, light infantry. As soon as I got there, I got my expert infantry badge, and then they sent me to air assault, and then I went to all these different schools, and man, in '95 I went to Haiti during their revolution, or they ousted President Aristide. We put him back in place. It was a United Nations mission. And when I left that, I did a bunch of small training deployments around the United States. Um, and when it's time to re-enlist, I did. I went to Fort Drum, New York, where people from Alaska would come to Fort Drum, upstate New York, to do cold weather training. And I went through that course too. That was that was something. And after that, I signed up to switched MOSs to 95 Bravo. I became a military police officer, and I did law enforcement in Germany for about 2 years as a desk sergeant. And then I got out of the military in January of 1999, Portland, and went to art school. I wanted to be a writer or a painter, I don't know. And I had a pretty good job. I was working for the Oregon Department of Transportation as an incident responder. And then 9/11 happened. And then the day after September 11th, I re-enlisted into the Oregon National Guard. I wanted to do my part. I thought, the worst of it would be I would be guarding some airport, or, I don't know, some kind of chemical depot like Umatilla or something like that. But then about a year and a half later, so 2 years later, my unit, Bravo Company 20162, was deployed to Iraq. It was 2004. It was a pretty bad part of the war. And I was an infantry squad leader. And we did so much in those first 2 months. It's so many missions. We were doing air assault missions as the Quick Reaction Force, or the QRF, for the Green Zone. So anytime something bad happened in the Green Zone, we'd get on helicopters, we'd fly down there, we'd get into firefights or chase car bombs, go from one car bomb to the next or something like that. And, we also had to defend the main supply route. We had to defend this bridge. We were afraid it would get blown up. It eventually did get blown up, but not while we were there. And then also we had to do security for the base that we were at. And so I was outside the wire more than I was inside the wire. I gave some kid $5 for his mom to cook us some dinner, and they'd come back with a big dinner, and we'd eat it, and got to know the people there. But then on June 13th, 2004, I was hit with it was a pretty organized ambush, a vehicle-borne IED, and it killed a good friend of mine, Eric McKinley. He was in my squad. I was in charge of him. Out of the 7 guys that I had in my squad, including myself that day, we had 3 Purple Hearts. Matt Zedwick got a Silver Star. Eric got a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart. It was pretty crazy. We had a bunch of guys hurt that day, and I was sent home. But I was sent home, and I was able to convalesce. They had me on orders. So I was trying to do the best I could, but I was a wreck. I really was. I was drinking way too much, living a self-destructive lifestyle. I didn't know where I fit in. I didn't know who I was. So when the guys came back and Hurricane Katrina happened, I was really excited to go on another deployment. And so I went down there as an acting platoon leader because we were short on lieutenants. because I had been promoted to E7 and or platoon sergeant. But so we went down to Katrina, and that was a whole different kind of weird. It was just as bad as the war, because the dead bodies that we found were people who were either died in the hurricane or died from the flood, or they were killing each other over candy bars and water because they just didn't have it. And we found holdouts. Found this one guy. As soon as we stepped on the porch, we knew that it was bad, just the smell. We broke the door down and we found that he was naked except for his tighty-whities, and he had saran wrapped a piece of paper to his right thigh with his name, his social security, and his date of birth. And I just imagine like what he went through before he decided to kill himself, you know. So 2007, I had 6 years, 12 total in the military were up, and the National Guard let me out. There was no real transitional program to educate me on what to do after I got out of the military, and I didn't know who the hell I was anymore. I was couldn't be Sergeant Davis. It was a really difficult time in my life. Not only did I drink too much and still had the self-destructive behavior, but I thought about suicide, and actively, like how I would kill myself and how I can do it, and how my family would be better off if I just ended it. And I was in a tough spot for a long time, like a lot of the guys that come back. But a couple of things that helped me out, and it took me a long time to realize what would help. But a couple of things that helped me out was I needed purpose again, you know. I needed purpose. I needed to know who I was, an identity, since I couldn't be who I was before. And I needed to get out into nature and just check out this beautiful state that we live in. So I started volunteering, trying to help other people out, find a purpose and identity. I became the post commander of an American Legion in Portland, in Northeast Portland. And we did clothing drives, we did food pantries, we gave food to people who needed it, we helped pay rent for people who couldn't pay rent. We found people jobs, we did a lot of good stuff. And then one winter, people were freezing on our streets, so we decided to turn our American Legion post into a homeless shelter. None of us knew what the hell we were doing, and I was so naive, but I wanted to help out. So I just thought if we had a coffee pot and a crock pot going, I can just keep place open and people would crash in the corners or whatnot.
This is an American Legion post, but you turned it into a 24/7 warming shelter?
Yeah, we did that for about 2 weeks.
Sean Davis is the commander at American Legion Post 134.
It was the Wednesday after the first gentleman died on our streets. That was the catalyst.
Sean had put out, hey, what do you guys think about doing a warming shelter with this cold snap? And instantly Al and I were like, all right, we'll be in tonight. That's what we do.
Seth Grant says he and other Legionnaires stayed at the post all day and night, sometimes in 12 to 18-hour shifts, to watch over the dozens of homeless people who came in to get out of the cold. And that wasn't always easy.
There were a lot of issues, mental health issues, drug and alcohol issues. We had prostitution in one time.
But Sean and Seth say most of the people didn't cause any problems at all.
These are regular people that are working at least part-time jobs, sometimes full-time jobs, and they're homeless.
And once word got out that these veterans were feeding and sheltering the homeless, the community really stepped up.
When it got out on social media, The 2 little Progressos, 2 crock pots I had multiplied, and people were bringing in their home cooked meals, and we had whole families towing little sleds with donations that they brought from their closets.
Sean and Seth say they handed out literally tons of clothes and blankets. But the effort wasn't just about shelter. It was about helping these people feel like people.
But what I learned in this amazing experience that I had was we have veterans in our community who were just like me, without purpose or identity. And when you give them purpose, they meet the challenge. They just, it was amazing. These guys, the week before they're playing video games on the couch and drinking beer, but all of a sudden now they're pulling 18-hour shifts helping homeless people that they had, didn't know or anything. And we did so much good that we raised enough. We raised a lot of money, but we also had like 2 tons of clothing. We got so many food donations that we had to drive it to other homeless shelters that were being run by the county and the city of Portland. And so it was just an amazing thing. After we were done with the homeless shelter, the weather kind of changed and we turned the post back into a post. Those same veterans who had stepped up just kind of went back to their lives. And some, used that experience to progress and change their lives. But a lot of them just went back to how they were. And to me, I saw a problem there. We have such an amazing resource with veterans in our communities, and they have such a skill set and experiences that they can help their communities. So it's like solving a problem with a problem. You have veterans in your community that need purpose. You have communities that need the help of these veterans. And so if we just let these veterans help in our communities, it would just help them. The suicide rate would go down for the veteran communities, and it would help the small towns across Oregon.